thing, which is the Tories need to find their new Brexit. Because what Brexit allowed them to do was the different, like the Lib Dems and the Reform, all these different types of people could sort of project whatever they wanted onto Brexit. So the Tories could make something a Brexit election, and it didn't really matter what that meant. You could pull in loads of voters. As you were saying, the problem with something like immigration is it's much more explicit what that means. So the Tories need to find something that can, again, be this broad canvas that every different type of potential Conservative voter can think, oh yeah, I'll vote for them because of that, without them ever having to realise they all disagree with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be looking out for Labour's pressure to its left as well as to Reform. So I was one of the people, I think, in the run-up to the election that said, no, Labour's got nothing to worry about, actually, in these seats which have very high Muslim populations, because they're so safe. Look at the majorities.
And they were.
We've seen what that happened. So, yeah, exactly.
Very honest of you. Rob?
The thing I'd be looking out for is a very rebellious Commons, a very rebellious Labour cohort, because number one, there's too many of them relative to the number of jobs available in government. And number two, crucially, so many marginal seats and so many marginal seats where you're facing different kinds of competition. So I suspect within a year, we will start seeing pretty large rebellions in the Commons on all sorts of issues, and often rebellions in different directions. Maybe the leadership won't mind too much because they'll think, well, it makes it a little bit like US politics. You've got to vote your constituency. We understand why you've got to vote against us on this. But we may see early and large rebellions on a number of issues. And coming back to John's point about things for the Conservatives to work on, they've got to work on unifying themselves, but they should also think about how they can split this huge Labour Commons cohort up. Can they find opposition votes that will cause this Labour cohort headaches, generate rebellions? Because that's a good strategy in opposition.
I think I'm going to have three things, and I can have three because it's my podcast, and I lived through this all as well. I think, yeah, as a journalist, I'm now, when I'm looking at an MP's behaviour, going to look back at the result and see how close the second place party was in their seat, because that will massively affect how that person behaves. Second of all, I'm going to be looking at this tension we've now got that just seems to be growing between the Prime Minister being more presidential and MPs being much more like local representatives of their area, because that's got big consequences for party discipline and just how we kind of consume politics. And my third one is, I'm going to break down politics into blockbuster films and long-running series. Scarlett, your facial expressions, you're like a one-person focus group. This is amazing. Like, things happen, right, that are a big deal, like in the last Parliament, Partygate, right? But then there are things that are just like box sets that run on and on and on and on, like what's happening with migration. And you have to think of those things. You have to keep both those different levels of scale in your head at the same time.
That does sound very clever.
Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I'm getting a nod from you then. Right, thank you, you three. We could have done this all day. Come back.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be delighted to. Thanks for having me.